Are you ready to stop the self-sabotage and create the life you desire? Well, in order for that to happen, you need to break free from the bad beliefs that are holding your success hostage. You need to optimize the stress by turning it into extra energy for success. And those hurtful habits? Well, we need to give that pain a purpose for progress. Welcome to Stop the Self Sabotage and Create the Life You Desire podcast. What is the pendulum of pain? Well, if you think of a pendulum and how it swings back and forth, that's exactly what we will do when we're in reactions to the same problem that keeps showing up again and again. Remember, reactions are based on past pain. Responses are based on future impact. But when we're experiencing the pendulum of pain, we're not in a responsible place. We're in reaction, swinging back and forth. Now, how did all of this start? You have a trigger, something that has set you off, and then dependent upon what you've been taught to value will then decide whether you start out with sadness and then you go over to anger, or from anger over to sadness. If you think about a pendulum and it is pulled all the way over to one side, what happens when you let go of it? It swings all the way over to the other side. And then it swings back to the first side again, and back and forth until it begins to settle down and then comes to rest in the center. But it can take a while for that to happen. It's the same way with us. Whenever we experience a challenge where we have not been able to find a resolution, we will go back and forth on the pendulum. Now, if you start out on the sadness side, it's because you have been taught to value dysfunctional certainty or dysfunctional validation. Dysfunctional certainty says that you can only be okay if other people, places, and things make it okay for you. So you've been taught to hand away your power. That is dysfunctional certainty. And whenever those things then let you down, and they will repeatedly, because the only way that you can move forward in life is when you experience a transfer of authority or a transfer of power, when that power is given back to you. But as long as you experience it from the dysfunctional side, you will start out with sadness. You will also start out with sadness on what's known as the validation side. And the validation side, when it is dysfunctional, says that you must suppress and repress yourself so others in your environment will not be threatened by the power that you do have. You will dumb yourself down and settle for the crumbs of connection. You won't rock the boat. So if that is you, in either of those two cases, you will start out with sadness because you have been taught to give yourself away at the expense of yourself. And there is a great deal of grief that can show up with that. And then what happens is that you cannot stay in one emotional state for too long. The system just becomes too flooded. So then you'll swing over to anger. Oh, how dare they? And then all of a sudden you become that bitch who's out of control. And then you'll swing back over to the sadness side. Not as far as you were to begin with. But, oh my gosh, you just can't seem to get a handle on this, and then swing back over to anger, and then finally at some point you'll settle in the middle. And we'll talk about what needs to happen when you settle in the middle. Now, if you have been taught dysfunctional variety and dysfunctional worth, you won't start out with sadness. You will start out with anger. So dysfunctional variety says that there has to be a lot of drama crisis, and chaos whenever you experience loss of power. And so you will right away go to the extreme of, oh my gosh, how can this be happening? We need to put a stop to it. Because again, you weren't taught that you have freedom on how to optimize your emotions. You weren't taught that. You go right to this is a crisis. You go to worst case scenario. If you've been taught dysfunctional variety, if you have been taught dysfunctional worth, you will go to, anger about how often do I need to be covering for people? Oh my gosh, how much longer am I going to have to make it okay for those around me to be barely functional? So you'll go to anger because you have been taught that you must always be covering for people. You know, you're the one that if you're working on a group project and other people are not pulling their end of the deal, you're the one late at night trying to bring it all together. So you will go to anger as your reaction. And then, because you can't maintain that anger state for very long, then you'll flip over to the extreme sadness of, oh my gosh, how long am I going to have to keep functioning and enabling other people like this in a almost codependent way? And then you'll flip over to anger and then the sadness, and then you'll come finally to rest in the middle. Here's what I tell my clients all the time. You cannot make a decision that's healthy when you're in a dysfunctional state, when you're on the pendulum of pain. So you can get assistance from someone. I do this all the time with my clients, where I help get them out of this crisis mode and settle things down for them to make a decision. But we cannot make a decision for progress when you're in extremes. All you can do is make a decision to help you avoid more pain. And that is never going to get you to where it is that you want to be. So here's what happens when that pendulum begins to settle down in that center place. You've got two directions you can go now that things have settled down. You can go either into making a decision for progress and the actions that need to happen where you partner up with someone else to help you get to a resolution. Or you can say, you know what, maybe it's not that bad. I've got this. I can handle it. And then you go into denial on what you just experienced. And you think you're going to be able to handle it. And what you've just done is you have set yourself up for the next time you're triggered to experience this cycle all over again. In fact, you will actually be motivated to find things to set you off. And there's 5 motivators. The top 3 that we're looking at are status, control, and freedom. And status says that somebody needs to be down, somebody needs to be up when it's dysfunctional. And if you have been conditioned and programmed that you need to be down, you will find people that will want to put themselves, or you will find situations that want to put themselves above you. So that's one way you can get triggered. If you have been taught dysfunctional control, where you point your finger at other people and say, I'll be okay when you make it okay for me, then you will continue to find people where you're going to have to compensate for them, because it's the only way you can feel okay, is either doing relationship bargaining or paying the price for them. That's the 2 dysfunctions that we just talked about. And then freedom. You think that the only way you're going to experience freedom is whenever you remove yourself from these situations. Well, yes. When you're being abused, you have to look at, why do you keep finding situations to be abused? But therein lies the interesting thing that what we're looking at, is that you no longer need to be triggered to find situations to where you think you've got to completely get out of the situation. No, you have to completely claim your power and then say, why am I choosing these situations? It's not if you get away from it that you'll be okay. It's when you claim your power to make a better decision instead of going into denial. Now, if I can assist you on this, I've got two options for you. One is to go to drewdawnferguson.com/2021, and you're going to see a class where I'm going to teach you how you're motivated to find dysfunction in people, places, and things, and how you can be motivated to actually find your power and start reclaiming it. Or if you choose to work with me personally, then what I'll do is I'll add this class onto it. So reach out to me, 1-636-699-7791. That's 1-636-699-7791 for a complimentary consultation. But you have to get off the pendulum of pain, not by denial, but by making a decision. You will no longer be motivated in ways that bring you out at the expense of you in order to enable someone else. It's time for you to start living your dreams and your desires and turning what you want to experience into your reality.